Hello, I'm Chaplain Larry Crabtree with the St. Mary's County Sheriff's Office and the Maryland State Police Leonardtown Barrack.
And I'm Chaplain Charlie Wharton with the St. Mary's County Sheriff's Office. And Larry, we are talking about some lessons that we've learned over the last several years that you and I have been involved in, not only ministry, but also in chaplaincy. What's another lesson that you have for us?
Oh, I have a big one right here. Trust is the most valuable commodity you're going to find on earth. Trust is more valuable than gold. And what I mean by trust is something that people will give you either because you have earned their respect or earned that place that they're willing to be vulnerable with you, or for some other reason they find you worthy of it. So trust is not something you just automatically get easily. People need to be able to give that to you. I recognize how valuable that trust is. And as chaplains, I have been amazed at the amount of trust that the agencies we serve put in us. Like the keys that we have and how we can open those doors to headquarters and offices. I mean, like 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We're given this carte blanche. You can walk into the jail unescorted and walk in there and walk the halls and do the work that we need to do. And I understand that that trust is huge, that's valuable. And that has been given to me. And that's an expensive thing. I don't ever want to violate or lose that trust. Because the thing about trust is that as hard as it is to earn, it is 100 times harder to get back if you violate or break it.
Talk a little bit about this, not just from a professional standpoint. Let's talk about this in particular from a family standpoint.
Oh, I'll tell you, just again in marriage, marriage you're going into, you're giving each other trust. In fact, you're making commitments to each other in vows, really contracts, that I will trust you, you will trust me, that we're going to be faithful, that I'll protect you, you protect me. When that trust is violated, because one individual will think maybe more self-centered, more about themselves, and violate that trust, it's like trust coins. It's like you put them in a bank, you save them and you reserve them, and when they're there, and you've got a good buffer of coins, trust coins that are there, when we do those little things that are offend or cause a problem, there's something to draw from. But you can't always draw, because there comes a point that bank gets empty. And when that bank gets empty, now it's 100 times harder to make those deposits of trust back in there for the future.
Yeah, you use that. It's a great illustration. And it's almost like you're putting pennies in. A lot of times that trust, you're putting pennies in, but you're taking dollars out.
Yep.
When you violate that trust, it's not a one-to-one thing. It's you use up a lot of trust when you step over those lines.
It is. And I'll tell you, it's so important to always remember that. And in law enforcement, this is so critical because communities put their trust in these men and women. It's a hard, long road to build that trust up. And what's happening today, right or wrong, media and others are portraying law enforcement officers, and often it's not right, but unfortunately, that's withdrawing some of that trust. So if we can go above and beyond by being those men and women of absolute integrity and trust, we're putting so much more in. Our community in particular, I think we have wonderful law enforcement officers. And I have to be honest, St. Mary's County, would you agree?
I would.
I think they deeply trust our people here.
I think it's interesting, too, that we have to keep building that trust because, like you say, the media, and I'm not a media basher, but if there are negative stories out there, a lot of people don't know the difference between an officer in LA and an officer in St. Mary's County. I remember the Rodney King issues back in the day, and I was working in thousands of miles away from where this was going on, and all of a sudden we're dealing with the LAPD fallout of the Rodney King issue. So it's so vitally important that as an agency we keep investing those trust coins so people don't look at us in that same way.
Yeah, and I think too, even within the agency, that it works the same way. So the trust for each other as comrades, the trust with administration, this stuff is so important to build that and to keep that reserve there because we're going to make mistakes.
And I think you just touched on an incredible point. How do the line officers learn to trust administration?
Well, I think you look at I get it. There's a difference between disagreeing with somebody and absolutely rejecting them and defying what's there. We're always going to have disagreements. We're different people. We have different opinions. We're not always going to like policies that come out. But you stop and you think about in your agencies, in the long run, administration, haven't they been making good decisions that have benefited you? They're behind your back for raises. They're making sure you have the equipment you have. Again, you don't agree with everything, but in the big scheme, they're there, and they're providing you a lot. And I think sometimes, again, we focus on that negative, the little stuff that we don't like, instead of the big stuff that we're actually benefiting from and the good that we're receiving, and we're more willing to violate our trust because of this little piece. And we rationalize, it's okay for me to violate that trust. And we forget, when you violate trust, it is so costly because trust is the most valuable commodity on earth.
Well, thank you for sharing that insight. And it's something that is so vitally important in every aspect of our lives.
Well, Charlie, these are good discussions, but for now, be strong
And be safe.